Hello 5-9 gamers, and thanks for joining me for another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel deck profile. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the Madolche deck. The Madolche deck is a very powerful deck. It's a deck I use personally in real life. What I like about this deck is this deck can OTK on the first turn. And the crazy thing about it is it only needs one card to operate. So if you're interested in checking out a deck that can OTK with only one single card basically in hand, feel free to stick around and check out this video. It's very, very good. So we're going to start off with the deck profile, and then I'll kind of explain how the main mechanics work for getting this OTK combo off, right? So this deck, you're going to run 3 Madolche Angelis. Basically, what Madolche Angeli does is she can basically tribute herself and special summon a Madolche from the deck. You're going to run 3 Madolche Hoop Cakes. Madolche Hoop Cake, when he is on the field, he can banish a monster from the graveyard and special summon any Madolche from the deck. Madolche Magellan, you want to run 3 of her. Basically, what she's going to do is when she is normal summoned, you can add any Madolche from your deck to your hand. And then you're also going to run 2 Madolche Messengelados. You could run them at 3 if you want to. Sometimes I like 3, sometimes I like 2. Just depends on what your preference is, but typically 2 is good enough for this guy. Basically, when this guy is special summoned while you control a beast type monster, you get to add a Madolche spell or trap to your hand. So basically, you're going to have Hoop Cake on the field when he comes out, and you're going to search out Madolche spell and traps. Madolche Pudding Cess is you're going to run just one of Madolche Pudding Cess. Madolche Pudding Cess is going to be a huge key to this deck to help make the Xyz monsters work, and she plays off of the next card that we're going to talk about. But she's going to be very cloggy in hand. You actually don't want to draw this card, so that's why you only want to run her at 1, and typically 1 is good enough to get your combos going. So the star of the Madolche deck here is actually going to be Madolche Petting Cessor. Madolche Petting Cessor is the single card that you need to get all the combos off. So if you start with Madolche Petting Cessor and your opponent has no outs or no ways to stop you, you're going to get an 8,000 OTK turn. The crazy thing about this is you don't have to start with Madolche Petting Cessor. You could start with Madolche Angeli. If you start with Angeli, you can summon her, send her to the graveyard, and then special summon Petting Cessor. You could also start with Madolche Magellan. If you start with Madolche Magellan, you normal summon her and add Petting Cessor to the hand. Petting Cessor basically just says, as long as you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon her from the hand. When you special summon her, you get to special summon any Madolche from the deck, and its level is decreased by 1. So what you do is you special summon Petting Cessor, and then she's going to get Pudding Cess from the deck, who will become a 4-star monster instead of a 5-star. And that's going to allow you to start going into some Xyz combos. But before we get too deep into the combos, let's finish the deck profile. So we're going to run 2 of Gameciel. I really like Gameciel just because having a Kaiju in a deck, it's a really great out to a lot of monsters. Cards like Gameciel, I don't even consider them like a monster card. Think of it as like a spell or trap card that can just wipe out any monster in the game, basically. The way Kaijus work is you tribute your opponent's monster to special summon them. You summon it to your opponent's field. Since you are special summoning the monster and tributing, you're technically not destroying it, you're not targeting it, you're not banishing it, you're not doing any of that. So literally, like, monsters cannot get around it, and it cannot be responded to because you're just performing a summon. So they can't like try to respond to it to cancel it out. They can't negate the monster effect to summon himself. There's just the opponent can't get around it, and it's an instant out to any card no matter how tough it is. It could be an ABC Buster Dragon, it can be an Access Code Talker, like, it just doesn't matter what they have. You just tribute it and Gameciel comes out. The reason why you choose Gameciel over other Kaijus is because he has the lowest attack, so it's the least threat to you on your opponent's field, right? Then we're going to run 3 Ash Blossoms. We got to run the meta, right? Now with Ash Blossom, there's a side note here. You have to be a little careful. So remember we talked about Petting Cessor. Her main combo is you have to have no monsters in the grave to special her. Where it can become an issue is if you're going turn 2, somebody does something and you want to negate with Ash Blossom now is in your graveyard. That's going to ruin your Petting Cessor play for when you go. However, if you have Hoot Cake in hand, it actually helps because it puts a monster in graveyard. Hoot Cake can banish it out, get a summon off of it, and then the graveyard is clean for Petting Cessor. So you just have to be aware of when and how you're using Ash Blossom, depending on what your hand is and what the situation is. But Ash Blossom is definitely still worth running in here, right? So that's the whole monster lineup. Now for the spell card lineup, we're going to run the Madolche spell package. So we're going to run 2 Madolche Chateau. We're going to run 2 Madolche Salons. We are going to run 2 Madolche tickets. I feel like 2 of each of these is enough. These cards can get very cloggy if you draw multiple copies or draw them when you don't want to, and they're all searchable in the deck. So I'd say 2 of each is definitely plenty. Madolche Chateau, basically what this card does is when you play it, it's going to shuffle all Madolches from the graveyard into the deck. So it's going to clear your graveyard, which will help you trigger other effects as well. And then all your Madolches get a 500 attack and defense boost. Madolche Salon, what this is going to do, it's a continuous spell card. basically when it's on the field, it's going to allow you to have an additional normal summon per turn of a Madolche monster. This is fantastic because if you don't start with like a petting sussor combo, you could say normal summon a Hoop Cake and then normal summon an Angeli, right? And then with those two cards, you can start going off and comboing. So it helps you, like, because the one big flaw with Madolche is you can get like some brick draws. And if you get a brick draw and it's just hard to get your combos going, or if your opponent gets some really early negates on your combos, that's where it can really hurt, right? Which is why this isn't a tier 0 deck, but it is very powerful and can win against very, very good decks if the situation is right. So that's Madolche Salon. And then the other thing Madolche Salon gets is if a Madolche is shuffled into the deck or hand by a Madolche card effect, you get to set a Madolche spell or trap to your field, so it can help you spam Madolche spell and trap cards. Madolche Ticket is another continuous spell card. Basically, if a Madolche is shuffled into your deck or hand from a Madolche card effect, you get to add a Madolche from your deck to your hand. However, if you control a fairy type monster, you get to special summon it to the field instead. And Madolches run quite a few fairies in it. Then the rest of the spell cards are pretty much generic stuff that, depending on your style and what you like, you could decide to run certain things or make some tweaks. So I just run Raigeki because I like field removal. Called by the Grave to me is a pretty good staple card these days. It really messes with the opponent's graveyard and can negate graveyard effects. So I really like that. Harpy's Feather Duster I feel is a valuable card, so you have a massive spell and trap board wipe. Crossout Designator. So this card, if you're playing in Platinum tier and you're playing against meta decks, Crossout Designator is really good. Basically what it does, it's a quick play spell card that when your opponent plays any card, if you have the same card in your deck, you can banish that card from your deck and then your opponent's card is negated. So the reason we run Crossout in this build is we're running 3 Ash Blossom, and then we're also, you're going to see later on, running 3 Infinite Impermanence, which are very staple cards, and those can all be negated by Crossout Designator. Now, if you're playing against decks that you don't know if they're running meta or not, you're not sure, you definitely could swap Crossout Designator out. After I go through the main profile, I'm just going to show you some alternate cards that also work well in Madolche. I'm going to run Upstart Goblin because if I can run a 39 card, why shouldn't I, right? So we're going to run Upstart Goblin. For the trap lineup, we're going to run 3 Madolche Promenades. This trap card is very, very good. What it does basically is when you play it, you take a Madolche from your field or graveyard and you get to add it to your hand, and then you negate a monster or face-up card effect on the field. So it can be spell, trap, or monster, just any face-up card your opponent controls. Their effect is negated for the turn. The shuffling the Madolche from like your graveyard back to your hand is actually really good because that will then trigger Ticket and Salon and any of those types of effects as well. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 there. The other thing that's cool about Promenade is if it's in your graveyard, you can banish it, and then you can basically take any Madolche in your deck, graveyard, or hand, and you can just attach it to an Xyz monster. So the main thing you'd want to do with this is if you've already done your combo with Madolche Pudding Cess, you can banish this from your graveyard, grab that Pudding Cess back from your graveyard or deck, and reattach it to an Xyz monster to continue abusing their effects, which is really, really, really good. And I'll explain how that combo all works here in a little bit, right? And then as I mentioned earlier, we got 3 Infinite Impermanence. This is pretty much a staple at 3 in a lot of decks, and basically having instant monster effect negation is really, really good in today's meta. And then I'm running 2 Ice Dragon Prison. Ice Dragon Prison is a card you definitely, if you don't like this style of card, you definitely don't have to run it. You could put something alternate in, but I do like it. So basically, if your opponent has a monster in their graveyard, you play this, you special summon it to your field, and then if they both share the same type, then you can banish both of them. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you're playing against a Blue Eyes deck, and let's say they have just any dragon monster in their graveyard, and they summon like Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, or Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, or just some crazy big dragon, right? You can play this, special summon their monster from the graveyard to your field, and then you banish both of them because they're both dragons and they both share that type. So I like it because it can get around some tougher to get rid of monsters, and it can really surprise your opponent. So that's basically the main 40 card deck right there. Okay, I'm going to go and just show you a couple of side options that you could run in the main deck if you want to. So Dark Ruler No More is a really good deck. It is worth main decking if you want to put it in the main deck. So like if you don't like the Crossout Designator play, or you don't like Ice Dragon's Prison and you want to try something else, Dark Ruler No More is really good. Basically, it's going to negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls until the end of the turn, and then they take no damage. But if you're going like turn 1, or they have like a really big field setup and you can't get around it, this card will allow you to kind of freely make your plays while ignoring all their monster effects. So I do like Dark Ruler No More. Forbidden Chalice, if you feel like the 3 Imperms and the Promenades aren't enough monster effect negation, you can put Forbidden Chalice in. It is a quick play spell. It's going to serve 2 purposes actually. The main reason you're going to use it is to negate a monster effect, but there could be that rare situation that they're just trying to attack over one of your monsters. You can actually use this on your own monster to get up a 400 attack boost, and then that could help you actually surprise your opponent that way. But mainly you use it for monster negation. And then Goes and Mash. This is another really good card that Madolches can run, and this can really lock out your opponent. So basically each player can only control one attribute. So attribute would be like wind, earth, light, dark, things like that. This Madolche deck pretty much operates on all earth, so it doesn't hurt you at all. And if your opponent is running other typings, especially if they're a spam deck that go into a ton of different link monsters, ton of different Xyz or synchros, this can really mess them up unless their deck is all running the same typing. The reason why you might not want to main deck it is you could run the risk of playing an opponent who does run all the same attribute, and then this card is kind of a dead card. So just some cards you can think about there. Now going into the extra deck, realistically, guys, the Madolches are really all you need for this deck to run. There's going to be 3 slots left over. You can pretty much put whatever you want in there, but I'm mainly going to talk about the Madolche. So Madolche Fresh Sistart is the link monster we're going to run. What this does is, as long as it's pointing to a Madolche monster, your Madolche spell and traps cannot be destroyed or targeted. So she's great for protecting that. And then she can protect herself, because if she were to get destroyed, you can take any Madolche in your graveyard and shuffle it into the deck instead. So that's really, really good, because that can trigger your shuffle into the deck effects, and it protects her from being destroyed, which is really, really good. The 2 rank 4s that we're going to be running are Madolche Teacher Glass Souffle and Madolche Tiramisu. Glass Souffle basically is more of a defensive option, but you really want to open with Glass Souffle, and I'll explain the combo here at the end. But Glass Souffle basically has a quick effect. You can detach a material, target any Madolche card on your field, and make it so it's unaffected by other monster effects for the turn. And then also, if a Madolche is sent to the graveyard, you could target cards in either player's graveyard and shuffle them into the deck, which is kind of cool because you can mess with the opponent's graveyard with her, which is really, really nice. And then the other card we have is Madolche Queen Tiramisu. This one honestly is like the MVP probably of the Xyz monsters, because what she does is she can detach one, and then you target 2 Madolche cards in your graveyard, shuffle them into your deck, and then you can target up to that many of your opponent's cards and shuffle them into their deck. The thing that's crazy about this is it's technically considered non-targeting, so it gets around monsters that can't be targeted, and it shuffles into the deck. So it doesn't destroy, doesn't banish, doesn't target. Like, it can get around a lot of really mean monsters, and it just basically will free up the board for you to attack direct for game. So Madolche Queen is really, really important here. Then we've got Madolche Pudding Cess Chocolate a la Mode. This is the rank 5. Basically, the way you get her out is you can just Xyz her on top of any of the rank 4 Madolches. And you basically want to have Madolche Pudding Cess as a material when you bring her out. If she has Madolche Pudding Cess as a material, well, whether she has Pudding Cess as a material or not, one of her effects is she can just take a Madolche in your grave and shuffle it into the deck. And you don't have to detach materials to do that. You can just do that once per turn. But if you have Pudding Cess as a material, if a Madolche is shuffled into the deck, then you can detach and then special any Madolche from the deck. So she really helps extend out your combos and fill out your board. And that's not limited to once per turn. So you can do that multiple times. So you're going to see when I talk about the combo that part's going to be really busted, right? So what I'm going to do to finish off the video is I'm just going to explain like the basic combo and how this works. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that Madolche Petting Cessor is the only card you need to actually have these combos work, right? So you can get a full board of 8,000 just by having Madolche Petting Cessor. So what you do is, let's say you open with her directly, right? Basically, you have no monsters in your graveyard, so you special summon her from her hand. So when she gets special summoned, you summon any Madolche from the deck. So what you're going to do is you're going to summon Madolche Pudding Cess. Madolche Pudding Cess is a level 5 monster, but her level is going to get lowered by 1 from Petting Cessor's effect. So then you've got 2 level 4s on the field. You're going to go ahead and Xyz them, and you're going to go into Glass Souffle. So when you go into Glass Souffle, she's going to come out onto the field, and with Glass Souffle, you're going to detach a card to target herself and make it so she's unaffected by other monster effects. Really, we're doing this just to put the monster in the graveyard. So when you put a monster in the graveyard, though, you want to make sure you don't put Pudding Cess in the graveyard, okay? So you're going to put the not Pudding Cess in the graveyard, and then you're going to have a monster in the graveyard. Glass Souffle is still going to have Pudding Cess underneath. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put Chocolate a la Mode on top of her. So Chocolate a la Mode can just come out for free on top of Glass Souffle. Chocolate a la Mode now has Glass Souffle and Pudding Cess as materials. So then what you're going to do with Chocolate a la Mode is you're going to take the monster in your graveyard, use her effect, shuffle it into the deck. When that shuffles into the deck, then you're going to use her effect to detach. You are going to detach Glass Souffle. When you detach Glass Souffle, put that in the graveyard, and that's going to allow you to get another special summon from the deck. So with that, you're going to go into Madolche Angeli. So then Madolche Angeli is going to hit the field. The reason why you want to do Angeli next is because you need more food in the graveyard. You need more Madolches in there, right? So then Angeli comes out. Because your Chocolate a la Mode detached Glass Souffle, she still has Pudding Cess on material, so she can do one more summon. So Angeli is going to tribute herself to the graveyard, putting something else in the graveyard, and Angeli then is going to special summon Madolche Hoot Cake. So then Hoot Cake is going to come out, and then Hoot Cake is going to banish Glass Souffle. Glass Souffle is going to get banished, and then with Hoot Cake, you are going to bring out Messengelato. Messengelato will hit the field, and since you have a beast, you can add a Madolche spell or trap to your hand. So what you're going to do is you are going to add your field card. So you're going to add Madolche Chateau. So now you got Madolche Chateau, and you got a few monsters on the field. So then what's going to happen is your Madolche Chateau, you're going to activate that. When you activate that, your monsters in the graveyard are going to shuffle into the deck. And then with Chocolate, you are going to detach again, and that's going to give you another special summon, and you're going to special summon another Messengelato. The second Messengelato is going to get you another Madolche spell or trap. From this point, you can grab whatever you want. So keep in mind, everything we've done to this point. So on the field right now, we've got a Chocolate a la Mode, we've got Madolche Hoot Cake, and we've got 2 Messengelatos on the field, right? So we've got our Xyz and 3 monsters on the field. So at this point, it just depends on what's in your hand. So let's say you have 2 other Madolches in the hand you want to bring out. You could grab Salon, because we still haven't used the normal summon yet. We could still normal 2 monsters from hand. So if that's the situation, maybe grab Salon. Otherwise, you could grab Ticket if you want to special more monsters to the field off of Ticket, right? So you could totally do that as well as another option. Or you could grab Madolche Promenade if you want to have monster effect negation for the next turn, right? So you got a lot of options there. You take your 2 level 4s and you can Xyz them. Now, if you're going for game, what you're going to do is you're going to Xyz into a Tiramisu. You Xyz into Tiramisu, and then Tiramisu can detach, and she can detach and like get rid of 2 cards on the opponent's field and open up the monster zones or spell and traps that you think are going to hurt you, right? Then what you could at this point, you've got enough damage for game. So if they've got nothing to stop you, you could just go and attack for game. But let's say this is you going first and you can't attack and you want to like set up for the next turn or whatever. Instead of Tiramisu, then you would have gone into like Glass Souffle for protection. And then with those other 2 monsters, you're going to link those off into your Madolche Link monster. So then once you got Fresh to Start on the field, you want to make sure that Fresh to Start is pointing to your other Madolches. So make sure that as you're setting this combo up, your Xyz monsters are going into the zones that are going to be pointed to by Sistart. So this is going to be your base like end board. So your end board should be a Sistart in the extra zone, and then she should be pointing to basically like 2 rank 4 Xyz, or what you're going to have is you're going to have 1 Chocolate, and then you're going to have one of the rank 4s, which is going to be Tiramisu, or it's going to be Glass Souffle. Now what you do is on that other Tiramisu I just talked about, or the Glass Souffle, you would put another Chocolate on top of that. So your end board is going to be Sistart pointing to 2 Chocolate a la Modes. You're going to have the field card in play. With the field card in play, they're all going to get a 500 boost. So what happens is Sis starts at 2,000 and your 2 chocolates are at 3,000. That is exactly 8,000 damage. And this is like the bare minimum board, right? So keep in mind that when I summoned Madgeline earlier, I got another Madolche in hand, and my Salon would give me another summon at this point. So I could throw another monster on board if I wanted to and have even more damage out there. Or that extra monster could take care of like another monster on the field that I couldn't get rid of earlier, and then I would still have 8k to attack. So that's basically the combo and the end board. And here's the crazy thing. Let's say you didn't start with Petting Sussor, right? Well, you start with Madgeline, and Madgeline can add Petting Sussor to hand. Then you go off, do the same combo, right? Let's say you start with Angeli. Summon Angeli, send it to the graveyard, get Petting Sussor, combo goes off. If you start with just Hoot Cake, it's a little bit trickier. But for example, let's say you start with Hoot Cake and Ash Blossom, you negate something on your opponent's turn, send Ash Blossom to the grave. On your turn, you can normal summon Hoot Cake, banish the Ash Blossom, and then go into Petting Sussor and then combo from there. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this deck profile. Please subscribe to 5-9, follow for more updates on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you all in the next one. モンスターカード